Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into how a Roman emperor, in a desperate gamble for power, didn't just change history, he completely reshaped the DNA of Christianity itself.
So let's just start with this. What if the big ideas in Western thought, sin, salvation, weren't really born in a monastery, but in the middle of a political crisis for a Roman emperor? It's a wild thought, and it takes us right back to the Roman Empire, a time of total chaos, raw ambition, and everyone looking for some kind of divine edge.
All right, to really get this, you have to picture the world Constantine grew up in. It was pure chaos. The 3rd century, a total disaster. It was basically a revolving door of emperors getting assassinated. So this guy Diocletian comes up with what he thinks is a brilliant solution, the tetrarchy, or rule of 4. You get 2 senior emperors, 2 junior ones. Perfect, right? Supposedly, this would stop the civil wars. Well, spoiler alert, it didn't. The second Constantine's troops illegally declared him emperor, the whole thing just blew up.
So here's Constantine in 306. His troops in Britain have just proclaimed him Augustus, the top dog, senior emperor. The problem? That's completely against the rules of the tetrarchy. To everyone else in the empire, he's not a legitimate ruler. He's an outlaw, a usurper. He has to either fight or talk his way to the top. And his entire future is riding on 2 things: how tough his army is and how much nerve he has.
And it all comes down to this one single battle. He's marching on Rome itself to face his rival, Maxentius. And look at the odds. Maxentius has the bigger, more veteran army. He holds the capital. He's got the home field advantage. And he's doing exactly what a good Roman general should do: praying and making huge sacrifices to Jupiter, Mars, all the traditional gods, basically asking them to guarantee his victory.
This is where it gets really interesting. How does Constantine respond? He does something radical, something almost unthinkable. He ditches the sacred Roman eagle, the aquila. This was the symbol of Jupiter himself, the very heart and soul of the legions for centuries. And he replaces it with this new, kind of obscure and super controversial symbol, the Chi-Rho, the sign of the Christian god. This wasn't just a change of logo, it was an incredible act of psychological warfare.
So why would he do this? Well, according to later Christian writers, he had a vision. And in this vision, he gets a promise. In this sign, you will conquer. Think about that. This wasn't like a typical Roman prayer, a sort of negotiation with the gods. This was an unsolicited, flat-out guarantee of total victory, but with a catch. He had to fight under the banner of this new, powerful, and frankly, very exclusive god.
And the gamble? It pays off. Big time. Constantine's army completely crushes Maxentius's forces. Maxentius himself actually drowns in the Tiber River trying to escape. And what's Constantine's first move as the new, undisputed ruler of the West? He doesn't just throw a party, nope. He immediately gets to work changing the entire religious landscape of the Roman Empire.
Okay, but here's a super important point. The Edict of Milan didn't make Christianity the state religion. Not at all. It was actually a really clever political move. It decreed universal religious tolerance. So yeah, it made Christianity legal and ended the persecutions, but it also protected the pagans. You could think of it like a cosmic insurance policy. Let's keep all the divine powers happy, just in case. The main goal wasn't faith, it was stability.
So the church is finally safe, right? Legal, out in the open. But here's the thing. When you take away an external enemy, all that energy that was focused on just surviving, it turns inward. And that's exactly what happened. The church basically erupted into a massive civil war over doctrine, threatening to rip Constantine's brand new unified empire right back apart.
So, this brings us to Constantine's next great crisis. And this was a problem he couldn't just solve with his legions.
The whole fight came down to one question. What is the nature of Christ? On one side, you had a priest named Arius. His view was basically that Christ was the first and greatest created being. There was a time when the Son was not, he said. But on the other side, you had guys like Athanasius who were like, no way. They argued that Christ is eternal, uncreated, and made of the exact same stuff as God the Father.
Now you have to remember, for Constantine, this wasn't about theology. He was a politician, an emperor. He couldn't care less about the fine print of Christology.
All he saw was that he just united the empire under this one god, and now that god's followers were literally rioting in the streets over details he probably didn't even understand. All he wanted was peace. He wanted what the Greeks called homonoia, concord, unity of mind. He just wanted them to stop fighting.
So what does an emperor do? He uses his imperial power to force an answer. He plans the first ever global church summit, the Council of Nicaea. He funds it, paying for hundreds of bishops to travel from all over the empire. And then he enforces the outcome. When they finally agree on the Nicene Creed, he basically says, sign it or you're exiled. And just like that, a huge precedent was set. The emperor is now the enforcer of correct Christian belief.
This really shows how it was a two-step process. A lot of people think Constantine made Christianity the official state religion, but that's not quite right. Think of it this way. Constantine opened the door. He legalized the faith and gave it a ton of money and prestige. But it was a later emperor, Theodosius, who walked through that door and then slammed it shut behind him, outlawing paganism and making Nicene Christianity the only game in town.
Okay, so now we have this new reality, a powerful state-sponsored church. And with the question of God's nature basically settled by imperial decree, the focus of the big debates shifts. The next huge fight isn't about God anymore. It's about us. It's about the fundamental nature of humanity.
So, you've got this priest, Pelagius, who has a pretty optimistic take. He argues that humans are born with free will, that we're basically good, and we are perfectly capable of choosing to do the right thing. But then you have this heavyweight bishop from North Africa, Augustine, who comes in with a much darker and more pessimistic view, a view that would end up defining Western thought for centuries.
And this is his game-changing doctrine, original sin. For Augustine, Adam's fall didn't just injure humanity, it killed us spiritually. Our free will is so broken, so corrupted, that we can't even choose good on our own. We are completely helpless and totally dependent on God's grace, an unearned gift, just to even want to be saved in the first place.
Now, why did this become such a big deal? Because Pelagius's ideas weren't just a theological disagreement, they were a direct threat to the power and purpose of this new, massive state church. I mean, think about it. If people can be good on their own, why do you need a powerful priesthood? If babies are born innocent, what's the point of infant baptism? Pelagius's view threatened to make the entire church institution, well, kind of unnecessary. And this is where Augustine delivers the theological knockout punch. He comes up with a perfect idea for this new reality. He says the church on earth is a corpus per mixtum, a mixed body. It's not some exclusive club for perfect saints. No, it's a hospital for sinners. It's full of both the saved and the unsaved, and only God knows which is which. This was the perfect justification for a powerful institution whose job was to manage a broken and fallen humanity. And with that, the deal was sealed. Augustine's view became the worldview. It would go on to shape Western civilization for more than 1,000 years. This idea of a deeply flawed humanity, a humanity that desperately needs a powerful institution to guide it, to control it, that became the foundation for medieval politics, society, and you could even argue, our modern psychology.
So it leaves us with a pretty heavy question, right? If an emperor's political crisis helped forge some of the most fundamental doctrines of a faith, how does that history still shape the way we think about faith and power today? It's something to chew on, for sure. When you look around, you can still see the long shadow cast by that emperor who just needed to win a battle. Thanks for diving into this with us.